Hello, everyone. Welcome to Basic English Academy. My name is Adam. Today, I want to talk about how to speak English naturally. When I first started learning English, it was hard for me to sound like a real speaker. I worried about making mistakes and felt nervous. But little by little, I found ways to improve. Over time, I learned how to make my English sound more natural. Now I am excited to share the tips that help me. Speaking English naturally is not about saying perfect sentences. It is about practicing in a way that feels comfortable. You don't have to memorize everything. In this video, I will share the steps I use to speak more fluently. These tips will help you sound more confident and comfortable when you speak English. I hope you find them helpful. Let's get started. When I first started learning English, I faced some common challenges that many of you might relate to. It wasn't easy, but each challenge helped me improve. One of the first challenges I faced was feeling like I was always translating from my native language. When I learned new words or phrases, I would think about them in my first language before speaking in English. This made it slow to speak and caused me to lose confidence. It was frustrating because I knew what I wanted to say, but the words just didn't come out quickly enough. I realized that translating every word was not the right way to learn. I needed to start thinking in English, not my native language. This took time, but little by little, I began to get better at thinking directly in English. Another challenge I faced was being afraid that I wouldn't understand people because they spoke too fast. At the beginning, I couldn't keep up with fast conversations, especially when native speakers talked. I would only catch a few words here and there, and I felt like I was missing out on the whole conversation. I worried that I would never be able to understand them. I started to listen to English every day through videos, songs, and podcasts. It was hard at first, but over time I got used to the sounds and rhythms of the language. Slowly, I started to understand more, and that made me feel more confident. I learned that listening regularly, even if I didn't understand everything, helped me improve. One of the hardest challenges for me was feeling not confident speaking in real situations. I was scared of making mistakes, and I didn't want people to laugh at me. Sometimes when I spoke English, I would forget words or make mistakes with grammar, and I would get embarrassed. I didn't want to sound silly. I remember one time I tried to speak to a native speaker, and I was so nervous that I couldn't remember simple words. I made a lot of mistakes, and I felt really bad about it. But after that conversation, I told myself, it's okay to make mistakes. Everyone makes them. I just need to keep practicing. I thought, how can I speak like them? How can I sound as natural as they do? I wanted to speak fluently, but I didn't know how to get there. But I decided not to give up. I realized that the more I practice, the better I will get. It wasn't going to happen overnight, but with small, consistent steps, I knew I could improve. I started practicing English every day, even if it was just for a few minutes. I watched English videos, listened to podcasts, and read simple books. I also practiced speaking with friends and language partners, even if it was just for a few sentences. At first, I still made mistakes, but I learned to laugh at them and keep going. I found that the more I practiced, the less nervous I felt. Speaking became easier, and I stopped worrying about making mistakes. Another thing that helped me was learning how to relax when I spoke. I used to try to speak perfectly, but that only made me more anxious. I realized that it's okay to speak slowly and take my time. I didn't need to rush. When I gave myself permission to speak slowly and not worry about making mistakes, I started to feel more comfortable. Speaking naturally wasn't about perfection. It was about expressing myself clearly and confidently. There was also a time when I practiced speaking in front of a mirror. This helped me to focus on my pronunciation and how I looked when I spoke. It was a bit strange at first, but it helped me feel more comfortable speaking in front of other people. Over time, I became more confident and even started to enjoy speaking English. I also found that it was important to use the language in real-life situations. I tried to speak with people whenever I could, whether it was in a class, at work, or with friends. I didn't wait until I felt perfect to start speaking. I just started speaking as much as I could. The more I used the language, the easier it became to speak naturally. One of the most important things I learned was not to be afraid of mistakes. Every mistake was a chance to learn something new. In fact, the more mistakes I made, the faster I improved. I had to remind myself that speaking is a skill, and like any skill, it gets better with practice. So if you are facing challenges like I did, don't worry. You are not alone. Learning a language is not easy, but with patience and practice, you will get better. I know that if I could do it, you can too. The key is to keep going, even when it's difficult. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to feel nervous. The most important thing is to keep practicing every day. Over time, you will see improvement, and one day you'll look back and be amazed at how far you've come. Keep pushing yourself and don't give up. The journey of learning English can be challenging, but it is also rewarding. You will become more confident, more fluent, and more comfortable speaking in any situation. Just keep practicing, stay patient, and believe in yourself. You can do it. When I started learning English, I knew that I needed to find ways to improve my speaking skills. Over time, I tried many methods, and I found some that helped me a lot. I'm excited to share these methods with you. They're simple, and I believe they can help you too. 1. Listen to native speakers. One of the first things I did to improve my English was listen to native speakers. I watched movies, TV shows, and YouTube videos in English. This was very helpful because it helped me understand how people speak in real life. I got used to the speed at which they speak, the way they form their sentences, and how the words flow together. Listening helped me learn how to sound more natural. It wasn't just about learning new words, it was about understanding how to say things the right way. I noticed how native speakers use different intonations and expressions. For example, they would say, "I'm just kidding," or "no way," instead of using more formal sentences. By listening to these examples, I was able to start using more natural sounding phrases myself. 2. Practice speaking. Every day I realized that the best way to get better at speaking English was to practice it every day. Even if it was just for 10 minutes a day, I tried to speak in English. I started by talking with friends who were learning English with me, and sometimes I would even speak to myself. At first it felt awkward. My words didn't come out the way I wanted, and I was often unsure of myself. But the more I practiced, the easier it became. The key was not to be afraid of making mistakes. I learned that making mistakes was a normal part of learning. Every time I made a mistake, I learned something new, and that helped me improve my speaking. So I kept practicing, and little by little, my confidence grew. 3. Learn phrases, not just words. At first, I made the mistake of focusing only on learning individual words. I learned the meaning of words like book, table, and car, but I soon realized that learning words alone wasn't enough. Native speakers don't just use single words in conversation, they use phrases. So I decided to learn phrases instead. For example, instead of just learning the word hello, I learned how to say, "Hi, how are you?" or "What's up?" I also learned how to answer questions like, "I'm good, thanks," and "not much." Learning these simple phrases made a big difference in how I spoke. I began to sound more natural and confident because I was using phrases that people actually say in daily life. 4. Use natural vocabulary. I also worked on learning vocabulary that native speakers actually use. For example, instead of saying do not, I learned to say don't. It might seem small, but these little changes made my speech sound more like a native speaker. I also learned some slang words like cool, awesome, and hang out. These are words that people often use in casual conversations. By using these words, I started to sound more natural. I also paid attention to how people use contractions, like I'm instead of I am, and you're instead of you are. Using contractions is an important part of speaking naturally. It helped me avoid sounding too formal, and I could keep up with fast conversations better. 5. Imitate native speakers. One of the most helpful methods I used was to imitate native speakers. I tried to copy how they spoke, including their intonation, rhythm, and pauses. For example, when I heard someone say a sentence, I would repeat it out loud exactly how they said it. I focused on the way they stressed certain words or phrases, and I tried to match their rhythm. It felt a little strange at first because I was trying to copy someone else, but over time I started to sound more natural. I also paid attention to how they use pauses in sentences. When you speak, pauses are very important. They help you sound more relaxed and give the listener time to understand. By imitating native speakers, I learned how to use pauses and rhythm to make my speech sound more natural. Another thing I did was shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they say at the same time. You try to match their pronunciation, speed, and tone. This practice helped me improve my speaking and made me sound more like a native speaker. It wasn't easy at first, but the more I did it, the better I got. I also noticed that when I shadowed, I could learn new words and phrases naturally. It was a fun way to practice because it felt like I was speaking along with someone else. 6. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. One of the most important lessons I learned was that making mistakes is okay. When I first started speaking English, I was afraid of making mistakes. I thought that if I made mistakes, people would laugh at me or think I was not good at English. But over time, I realized that everyone makes mistakes. Even native speakers make mistakes sometimes. The important thing is to keep going and learn from those mistakes. Every time I made a mistake, I was one step closer to speaking better English. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just keep practicing and you'll get better. 7. Surround yourself with English. Another method that really helped me was surrounding myself with English. I made English a part of my daily life. I changed the language on my phone to English, listened to English music, and read books in English. The more I surrounded myself with the language, the easier it became to learn. I didn't have to study all the time, but just being around English every day helped me pick up new words and phrases naturally. These are some of the methods I use to improve my English speaking. They help me a lot, and I believe they can help you too. The most important thing is to practice every day and not be afraid to make mistakes. The more you practice, the more confident you will become. Keep going, and soon you will be speaking English like a native speaker. Akurm. As I continued to practice speaking English naturally, I started to notice real changes in my ability to communicate. These changes were small at first, but over time, they added up to big improvements. Let me share with you how learning to speak English more naturally changed my life. 1. I could speak more fluently. At the beginning, I struggled to speak English fluently. I would stop in the middle of sentences to think about what to say next. My conversations felt slow, and I was always worried about making mistakes. But as I practiced listening to native speakers and using the methods I shared earlier, I started to speak more smoothly. My sentences became longer, and I didn't stop as often to think of the right words. I found that I could express myself more easily, and this made speaking more enjoyable. I could talk about different topics without feeling stuck or nervous. Speaking became less stressful, and I started to feel more comfortable. 2. I understood native speakers. Better, one of the most exciting changes was how much better I became at understanding native speakers. At first, when I listened to native speakers talk, I had to translate everything in my head, and it was hard to keep up with their speed. I would often miss words or get confused, but over time, as I practiced listening to English every day, I found that I didn't need to translate as much. I could understand what people were saying right away, and I didn't have to think so hard. This was a big improvement because it meant I could follow conversations more easily, whether I was watching a movie, listening to a podcast, or talking to a friend. Understanding spoken English without translating made me feel more confident and made my conversations more natural. 3. I felt confident in real situations. Another important change was that I began to feel more confident in real-life situations. Before, speaking English with others, especially with native speakers, made me nervous. I was afraid of making mistakes and worried that people wouldn't understand me. But as I practiced more, I realized that it was okay to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes when they are learning something new, and it's a part of the learning process. With this new mindset, speaking with friends or strangers became easier. I no longer felt scared to speak, and I was able to enjoy conversations. I could express myself more clearly, and even if I made a mistake, I knew that I could keep going and learn from it. This gave me more confidence and made me feel comfortable speaking English in many situations. 4. Real conversations felt natural. One of the best moments that showed me how much my English had improved was when I had a conversation with a native English speaker at a cafe. I was sitting with a friend who spoke English, and we started talking about different topics, like the weather and our hobbies. At first, I felt a little nervous, but as we talked, I realized that the conversation was flowing naturally. I wasn't stopping to think about each word or sentence. I was just speaking. It felt like any other conversation I would have in my own language. We talked for about 30 minutes, and by the end, I felt so proud. It was amazing to see how much my English had improved. I didn't need to worry about making mistakes or feeling awkward. I was able to speak confidently and comfortably, and the conversation felt completely natural. That moment showed me that all the hard work and practice had paid off. 5. I felt more connected to the world. As my ability to speak English naturally improved, I also started to feel more connected to the world around me. English is a global language, and speaking it fluently opened up new opportunities for me to connect with people from different countries. I was able to join more conversations, whether in person or online, and share my thoughts and ideas with others. I felt like I was part of a larger community, and it made me excited to continue learning. Speaking English also gave me access to more information. I could watch movies, read books, and follow the news in English. It opened up new experiences and made me feel more connected to different cultures. 6. I gained confidence in other areas of my life. The improvements I made in speaking English also helped me in other areas of my life. As I became more confident in speaking English, I also started to feel more confident in other things I was learning. For example, when I learned new skills or faced challenges at work or in school, I applied the same ideas I used to improve my English. I learned to be patient with myself, to keep practicing, and to not be afraid of making mistakes. The confidence I gained from speaking English naturally helped me believe in myself more, and this made it easier to take on new challenges in other areas of my life. 7. I started helping others. Another positive change that came from learning English naturally was that I was able to help others who were learning English too. As I improved, I found that I could explain things to friends or family members who were struggling with the language. I shared the tips and methods that worked for me, and I enjoyed seeing them improve as well. Helping others made me feel good and reminded me of how far I had come. It also motivated me to keep learning and growing in my own language journey. 8. Learning English became fun. In the beginning, learning English felt like a big task. I had to study grammar rules and memorize vocabulary, and it often felt like hard work. But as I started to speak more naturally, learning English became more fun. I didn't feel like I was just studying. I was enjoying the process of speaking and understanding English, watching movies, listening to music, and having conversations with others became enjoyable activities. It felt like a game or a challenge, and I was always excited to learn something new. Learning English wasn't just about reaching a goal, it was about enjoying the journey. In conclusion, learning to speak English naturally has had a huge impact on my life. It has given me the ability to speak more fluently, understand native speakers better, and feel confident in real conversations. I've been able to connect with people from all over the world, and my confidence has grown in many other areas of my life. The skills I've gained have opened up new opportunities and made me feel more connected to the world. If you're learning English, I encourage you to keep practicing and use these methods to help you speak more naturally. Over time, you'll see the same positive changes in your own life, and you'll feel proud of how much you've improved. If you want to speak English naturally, here are some tips you can follow to help you improve. 1. Listen to English every day. One of the best ways to improve your English is to listen to it every day. You can listen to movies, podcasts, or even songs in English. The more you listen, the more you'll get used to how English sounds. You can also listen to different accents and ways of speaking. This will help you understand English better and help you speak more naturally. It's okay if you don't understand everything at first. The goal is to keep listening and become familiar with the language. Over time, you'll start to notice that you can understand more and more. 2. Practice speaking every day. Another important tip is to speak every day. Even if you only practice for 10 to 15 minutes, make sure to speak English regularly. It doesn't matter if you're speaking to someone or just talking to yourself. The more you practice, the better you'll get. At first, it may feel awkward or difficult, but with practice, you'll start to feel more comfortable. Try to find opportunities to speak, even if it's just repeating what you hear in movies or songs. Speaking regularly helps you remember words and makes it easier to speak naturally when you're having a conversation. 3. Learn phrases. When learning English, it's helpful to learn full phrases instead of just individual words. For example, instead of only learning the word hello, learn phrases like, "Hi, how are you?" or "What's up?" Learning these common phrases helps you speak more naturally. You'll sound more like a native speaker because you'll be using words and expressions that people actually say in everyday conversations. Focus on phrases that are useful in real-life situations, like asking for directions, ordering food, or talking about your day. Learning phrases will also help you feel more confident when you speak. 4. Use what you learn. One of the best ways to remember new words and phrases is to use them in conversations. Don't be afraid to try out new words or sentences when you talk to someone. Even if you make mistakes, it's important to keep using the language. The more you use what you've learned, the more you'll remember it. You can also try to find different ways to use the same words or phrases. For example, if you learn how to say, I am happy, try saying, I feel happy, or I'm feeling good. Using what you learn helps you improve and makes your speech sound more natural. 5. Don't worry about mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes when they are learning a new language, and that's okay. The important thing is not to worry about making mistakes. Mistakes are part of the learning process. When you speak English, try not to be afraid of saying something wrong. The more you speak, the less you'll worry about making mistakes. Over time, you'll start to feel more confident and your mistakes will become less frequent. Remember, the goal is to keep practicing and speaking. You'll improve with time and practice, so don't be afraid to make mistakes. The more you practice, the better you'll get. 6. Be patient with yourself. Learning a language takes time, so be patient with yourself. Don't expect to speak perfectly right away. It's okay if you don't understand everything or if you make mistakes. Keep practicing every day and you'll see progress. If you feel frustrated, remember that learning a new language is a big achievement. Every time you speak, you're getting better. Celebrate your small victories along the way, like learning a new phrase or having a short conversation in English. Over time, all your hard work will pay off, and you'll be able to speak more confidently. 7. Surround yourself with English. Another good tip is to surround yourself with English as much as possible. Try to use English in your daily life. You can change the language settings on your phone or computer to English. You can follow social media accounts that post in English or read books in English. The more you surround yourself with a language, the easier it will be to pick up new words and phrases. You'll start to think in English, and this will help you speak more naturally. 8. Find a language partner. One of the best ways to practice speaking is to find a language partner. This can be someone who speaks English or someone who is also learning the language. You can practice speaking together and help each other improve. You can find language partners online or in your community. Having someone to talk to makes learning more fun and gives you the chance to practice in a real conversation. You can ask questions, get feedback, and learn from each other. 9. Focus on pronunciation. Pronunciation is very important when speaking English. If people can't understand what you're saying, it can be hard to have a conversation. You don't need to have a perfect accent, but try to pronounce words clearly. You can listen to native speakers and repeat what they say to improve your pronunciation. Practice the sounds that are difficult for you, and don't be afraid to ask others to help you. The more you practice, the better your pronunciation will become. 10. Enjoy the process. Finally, try to enjoy the process of learning English. Don't focus too much on making mistakes or getting everything perfect. Learning a language is a journey, and it can be fun. Watch movies you enjoy, listen to music, and talk to people. The more you enjoy the process, the more motivated you'll be to continue learning. Learning English can open up many opportunities, so have fun with it and celebrate every step forward. Every little bit of progress is a success. In conclusion, if you want to speak English naturally, remember to listen to English every day, practice speaking regularly, learn useful phrases, use what you learn in conversations, and don't worry about mistakes. Keep practicing, be patient with yourself, and enjoy the journey of learning. Over time, you will see improvement and feel more confident in your ability to speak English naturally. Keep going, and you will reach your goals. Kuri. Thank you for listening to today's video. I hope these tips help you start speaking English more naturally. Remember, learning a language takes time, but with practice and consistency, you'll get better and better. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Let's continue learning together here at Basic English Academy. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.